Welcome into another edition of Dolphins Today. We've got a lot to cover, and we start with the latest Dolphins rumors because this time of year, each and every team's outlook looks a little bit different. So, we know the Dolphins are in first place in the AFC East. They've battled plenty of injuries, and the way the NFL works, if you didn't know, once a player's on injured reserve and comes off of injured reserve, there's only 8 instances permitted by the NFL to do so. So, Barry Jackson reminds us this, a Dolphins insider, that the Dolphins have already utilized 6 of an eligible 8 options to activate a player off of injured reserve. So, per Mike McDaniel, running back Chris Brooks, pretty close to being one of those that's ready to open that 21-day practice window. And the Dolphins can bring 2 more players off IR this year. Now, as a good reminder, there's no setback for Devon Achane. They were just being careful with him. That's why he missed the game against the Jets. But that's important to know as we get ready to dive into what's coming up. Only 2 eligible spots remaining for the Dolphins to activate a player from injured reserve. So, couple of different options. You saw Barry Jackson mention Chris Brooks. Now, that's really interesting, especially when you consider where this running back room is at right now. Obviously, Raheem Mostert having a breakout year. He's been incredible. But Devon Achane's battled injuries, and because of that, we saw Jeff Wilson quite a bit against the Jets. We also saw Darrynton Evans be elevated off of the practice squad. So when you start elevating guys off a practice squad, you think that might be a position of need where if there's an IR candidate to replace that practice squad player, that would be a viable option for the Dolphins. So remember that with Chris Brooks, and he's already eligible to come back. And remember, he injured his ankle against the Broncos. A second option, Isaiah Wynn on the offensive line. He's eligible to return week 13. He had that quad injury, and we've talked at length about how this Dolphins offensive line could benefit from more depth, more willing and able, healthy bodies in the trenches for the Miami Dolphins. So 2 options right there of the 2 remaining spots. There's also Erik Ezukanma, who did not have a lot of production this year. He had some production in his rookie year. Second year just hasn't really found his way with the Dolphins. Played early in the season, but they were using him more in a role on jet sweeps, reverses. He really didn't find his way as an impactful role as a wide receiver, but more as a running back. And remember, he has a non-football injury with that neck. So kind of a complex issue there and difficult to put a timeline on it when you're referring to a player's neck. And lastly, Salvon Ahmed, we know his season is likely done based on the timing of his foot injury. But remember, Ahmed is a guy who really had played an important role. He scored a really big touchdown against the Raiders several weeks ago out of the backfield as a nice change-up back, and he really had filled that RB3 role when Achane was out, as well as the beginning of the season. Remember, Jeff Wilson started the season on IR. So that's your list of, in my opinion, the most realistic candidates to fill 2 of those remaining injured reserve activation roles from the Dolphins injured reserve list. So you tell me who will be the 2 players to come off of IR for the Miami Dolphins. Let me know in the comments. I have my best guesses, if you will, but I want to hear from you. So let me know in the comments. We'll start with what I believe is the most realistic, and that is Chris Brooks. He's a guy, undrafted rookie out of BYU, who has already made an impact for the Dolphins as a rookie early in this year. Now, some of these were in that game against Denver that was a blowout, but the guy looked like an NFL running back. 15 carries on the season, 94 yards. He's a guy that runs with a mean streak. It's almost angry, if you will. He runs angry, 6.3 yards per carry. And again, very limited sample size in just the 6 games. But if you're elevating players from the practice squad like they had to do last week with Darrynton Evans, I think Chris Brooks is a better option. No disrespect to Evans, but Chris Brooks would be a great guy to utilize one of those last 2 remaining IR spots to activate a player to the active roster. Mike McDaniel also kind of gave us a glimpse into the possibility, referring to Chris Brooks, saying, I know one thing, he'll be ready to go when his window is activated because he is hungry to participate. That's for sure. So he used some pretty definitive language there. He didn't say we might, he said when, and he said is activated. So that leads me to believe that Chris Brooks is going to be one of those guys. Now, another option, I don't say purely on position because Isaiah Wynn has played really well and did before he got hurt. But anytime you got an offensive lineman that can help this team, the Dolphins are likely to activate him if he can return from that quad injury. So Wynn this year has played 392 snaps, has not allowed a sack. Really impressive there. Just the 3 penalties, and his Pro Football Focus pass blocking grade is at 67.5. So not incredible numbers there, but a guy that you can win with. And we showed you that quote earlier of how Mike McDaniel feels about Isaiah Wynn. And I got to tell you, I believe those are the 2 most likely candidates. Chris Brooks as a running back and Isaiah Wynn. And that would utilize the last 2 remaining spots the Dolphins have to activate a player off of injured reserve. So that's no disrespect to Salvon Ahmed, who has played pretty well, like I said, with Jeff Wilson Jr. starting on injured reserve this season. Ahmed found his way into the rotation at running back, scored the 1 touchdown, but the production on the ground really hasn't been there. And as for Ezukanma, just like I was mentioning, not a lot of production, no receptions in 2023, and just the 5 carries for 22 yards. Also, it's a neck injury, so really anything can happen, but I did find this particularly interesting just a little bit ago. In fact, yesterday, Eazy-E tweeted this out, I want to play football. So he wants to, just a matter of if he can and if he'll be healthy enough and if the Dolphins want to utilize one of those spots for him to return. Again, if I was a betting man, I don't think it will happen. That said, we wish Eazy-E, Erik Ezukanma, all the best in his recovery with that neck injury. We wish all the players all the best in their recovery. Ahmed with the foot injury, and of course, Chris Brooks with the ankle injury, and Isaiah Wynn with the quad injury. Now, given all the injuries that are going on, I got to ask you, how concerned are you? Because it really does feel like those injuries are starting to add up. Yes, it's that point in the season in the National Football League where just about everybody's going to be banged up, but it feels like there are really some important injuries that the Dolphins are dealing with. So let me know in the comments, how concerned are you? Scale it for me, 1 through 10. Coming up, we're going to talk about Hard Knocks. The 2nd episode is fully available. It aired last night. I'm going to tell you all about my reactions to it, what I loved, what I didn't like. But first, got to give a huge shout out to today's presenting sponsor, GameTime, for all your ticketing needs. It's a one-stop shop. I'm telling you, tickets to football games, baseball, basketball, and concerts. All your live events, all you need to do is download the GameTime app, and from there, it is easy, my friends. You get a nice high-def picture of where your seats will be at. It's easy to use, couple clicks of the button, and most importantly, you're getting the lowest price guaranteed, even on last-minute tickets, which I love. So last minute doesn't matter. You're going to get the lowest price guaranteed. In fact, GameTime even specializes in last-minute ticket deals. So let's say it's the day of the game. You're like, I don't want to watch this game on TV. I want to be there. Download the GameTime app. That's what it's for, and score the lowest prices on last-minute ticket deals. So don't waste any more time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using the GameTime app. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code FINSCHAT for $20 off your purchase. Now, that's code FINSCHAT, PHINSCHAT, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but when you create that account and you redeem the code FINSCHAT, PHINSCHAT, you get $20 off. So download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed, and we'll put that link in the chat for you as well because we care and we love you. So there you go. Download the GameTime app, proud presenting sponsor of today's show. Now, Hard Knocks I love Hard Knocks. I've said this once on the show. I'll say it a million times. The behind-the-scenes, close access that Hard Knocks allows a viewer like me, like you, to have really is a thrilling viewing experience for me, and I don't think I'm alone in that. Now, this second Hard Knocks episode, there might be some spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, close your ears, don't leave us, just mute me for a second. But if you haven't seen it by now, I mean, come on, what are you waiting for? So Joe Shad breaks it down with some of the intriguing takeaways from this last Hard Knocks episode. Obviously, the Jaelan Phillips stuff is hilarious at the beginning when he's showing his personality, cuddling with his cat, all that good stuff. But we know, unfortunately, what happens later in the episode. A bummer there. I thought Jalen Ramsey was portrayed in that interview as a no-nonsense type of guy, and Jaelan Phillips portrayed as a good dude. Darrell Bevell gets a little bit emotional with the quarterbacks. Of course, he's the quarterbacks coach, and he and Tua Tagovailoa and some of the other quarterbacks are talking all about how thankful they are for each other with it being around the Thanksgiving holidays. Really good stuff there. And I love the interactions with the referees when they're talking to the players. This particular episode, you get a ref warning Tua, make sure his players are set before a snap. And you never know what those conversations are like pregame, at halftime, and Hard Knocks is a way to show us exactly what goes on the field of play in the midst of it all. So, he also said, McDaniel says of 87 Raiders hit him in the groin on the sideline. That part was hilarious. So, in that game against the Raiders, a player spun out of bounds and hit Mike McDaniel. He had some pretty funny exchanges with what transpired there. All good stuff. And I also think it's really important to really show how supportive Mike McDaniel is of Tua. After the interceptions, he was all supportive of Tua in that game against the Jets. So, good stuff there. Overall, really enjoyed it. It was a great watch. It almost always is, and that's what we love about Hard Knocks. However, it was really tough to watch the build-up when you know what's going to happen to Jaelan Phillips, and it got a little emotional. I'm not going to lie to you. I also found this quote from Zach Sieler on Hard Knocks really moving and kind of shows the type of person that Jaelan Phillips is. He said, Zach Sieler, that is, said, I feel so bad for Jaelan. It literally hurts my heart. He's having the best year of his life, does everything right, and that, I think, really personifies who Jaelan Phillips is, a guy that does everything right. And as for how Jaelan Phillips' family reacted and handled the situation, as you can imagine, a very emotional day for them. My mom was crying on Dan Marino's shoulder. They were there for me and my family. Said, I'm going to be a stronger person. It's going to be a long process, but I just know I'm a fighter. I'm going to keep fighting. So I found that really interesting that Dan Marino was there comforting Jaelan Phillips' mom, and it just shows the level of connectivity, the chemistry, the continuity, whatever word you want to use to describe the way this Miami Dolphins team is a family. We're a family here on Dolphins Today, and I think that's just an extension into Hard Knocks, which we get to see personified on the episode. So let me know what you thought of the second episode. If you watched it, how do you grade that episode? A, B, C, D, or F? And I get it. Some of it was tough to watch with the Jaelan Phillips injury. But again, this is unscripted. It is very reactionary to what happens. It's the whole point of the show, to follow a team through a game week and see what it's like. So, yes, that part was difficult to watch, but I thought overall a really, really good show. Now, I'm always tweeting about the Dolphins. I'm always talking about what the latest and greatest is from the Fins fam. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jake_Reitma. Also tweet out the links to all of our shows and you don't want to miss. So appreciate everybody tuning in. And as always, subscribe to the channel, Dolphins Today. We're bringing you daily Dolphins content. You won't miss a thing. And we've got our next live watch party on Sunday. The Dolphins look to go to 9-3 against the Commanders.